What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So since we're just about into November, we all pretty much figure we know what Nintendo has planned for the rest of the year. However, based on a message that was sent out and then promptly deleted from a certain analyst, speculation has kicked up that Nintendo could have one more surprise game announcement for 2023. And we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony once again, as it appears that they've hit with some bad news and layoffs at Bungie, and also maybe delays for some of their upcoming games and expansion. A lot to go over with that one. And it appears Microsoft is moving to block certain unauthorized controllers, and it appears we now have a response around that. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Level 5 and some games that they definitely need to get some release dates on. And it appears we should be seeing that here pretty soon. We can see this posted up by Gamatsu over on Twitter, where they say Level 5 will celebrate its 25th anniversary on October 28th, which is in, they say, about 9.5 hours. Of course, this is already passed, but the big thing here is that there are announcements regarding release dates for upcoming titles will follow in November, and there are a couple of them that just have the 2023 release year on, like Megaton, Masashi Wired, Fantasy Life, The Girl Who Steals Time, and Inazuma 11 Victory Road. Deca Police and Professor Layton and the New World of Steam are probably the biggest ones currently that people are thinking of, especially Deca Police, as that is a multi-platform launch between Switch and PlayStation. And it's looked pretty interesting. I feel like it definitely leans more into like the narrative detective side of things, but has that JRPG spin on it with the battle system. So I'm curious about that one, but they still have it as 2023, and we're just about in November, so unless they're launching this thing in the next, 30 or 40 days, just ahead of the holidays, it seems like one that'll probably fall into 2024, maybe that first quarter. But I guess keep your eyes out, and of course, I'll keep you guys updated here on these release dates. Also, we did get some comments from Masahiro Sakurai on his YouTube channel for the future of Super Smash Bros. And if they can really do more than what's already been done in Ultimate. We can see this posted up with the quote over on Nintendo Life, where he says, "As for what comes next for the Smash Bros. Series, even I'm not sure. I feel we truly succeeded in making people happy with this game, but now that Smash Bros. Has grown to be monstrous in size, I'd say it's difficult to imagine an increase of this magnitude happening again. Every time we manage to make a game that I had previously thought impossible, so I can't say for certain there won't be another, but I do think it would be difficult to push it any further than we have." And I've seen people talk about the idea of them rebooting Smash Bros. For the next big iteration of the game series, and that's probably the path to go, but I don't think that would necessarily happen anytime soon, and Smash Bros. Ultimate would probably be better off just getting ported to Nintendo's next system while they work out how exactly to reboot the series down the road. It would just be a way to get the game obviously moved over to the new system and probably do another Fighter's Pass and pack all of that content in. So it's a interesting crossroads for Nintendo. How do you follow up the Ultimate release for Super Smash Bros.? Oh, and here's a fun bit of retro news. It's something I did not know for Super Mario World. I'm curious how many people out there did, which we can see this posted up. It's over on the Video Game Art and Tidbits, and they go over the process of holding two different items in Super Mario World. And I'm happy to see that other people kind of reacted the same way of, oh, I did not know that was necessarily a thing. I mean, they have the steps lined out here to where you could, for example, take a shell with you and a key, kind of run around with those, maybe going through the end goal with multiple things to get different power-ups that way. It's just, it's amazing. Some of these games from even back then, you can still get new bits of information. And I think this was in like a strategy guide or something. So there you go. I guess I should have got Nintendo Power or the player's guide or something, but didn't get a lot of those back then on like the Super Nintendo days. We just kind of had to figure it out as we went. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and a potential surprise reveal to end 2023. Now, I'm not really expecting a Nintendo Direct or anything like that. I feel like we're all done with that for the year, and we'll look towards the start of 2024, maybe for them to even announce the next system and set up the roadmap for that launch. But there is something that's kind of been out there for a long time now that we've talked about for the Legend of Zelda series. And, well, this now comes back to Dr. Serkan Toto, who we have talked about from time to time, an analyst at Kantan Games, who has actually predicted the Switch Pro for like the past 3 or 4 years. Start of every year or end of every year is like, hey, the Switch Pro, Nintendo's got to be doing it next year, right? Well, here we are with basically the same X1, of course, going through that revision from 20 nanometer to 16 nanometer, but never getting that Switch Pro. But he did tweet something out a while ago that seemed to correlate with Zelda getting a 2022 release for Tears of the Kingdom, which we know eventually got pushed into 2023. But his most recent tweet was up for a couple of hours before it was gone. And fortunately, over on the Reddit Gaming Leaks, they managed to pick it up. And it did say ZR 2023, which obviously means the announcement for the Switch 2 is coming anytime now. This is again, people kind of speculating here, just going off of a couple of letters and a year. Now, it seems like Serkan Toto would be kind of hinting towards something Nintendo related with this, and ZR Zelda remake? That's something that's come up. Could they be doing that Ocarina of Time remake that's been speculated, rumored, talked about for quite a while? And look, whenever they want to do an Ocarina of Time remake, it's gonna sell like crazy. And I don't know if it'll hit the level we see with these open world Zelda games, but when it comes to the more traditional linear style, I think it would do incredibly well. Just it's Ocarina of Time. You know, it's one of the greatest games ever made. It's critically received. Obviously, it's at the top of like every single review site, all-time best, all that. But the other thing could just be Zelda Remaster. And what collection have we been talking about for what feels like forever, almost the entirety of the Switch's life, as the Wind Waker Twilight Princess bundle. And that's the interesting thing about that collection. Technically, Nintendo could announce it and release it a month or two later. It does make me wonder, though, if what's being referred to here is just an announcement of a Zelda Remaster collection with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and if that's something that could just be lined up at the Game Awards. Although Nintendo has been kind of missing from the Game Awards for a little while now, other than just running commercials and ad spots, but I think that'd be kind of neat to see that there and just say, hey, it's coming out in February. Also, Nintendo could just put it on Twitter. They've done that with a lot of their reveals as well, and that's kind of how I think that would just get shown. Just, hey, this is coming out in 3 or 4 months. It'll kick off 2024 with a few other things we're doing, and you can pick it up in February. So, interesting stuff here. Again, it was up for a couple of hours, but also this does come back to it just being a Serkan Toto, an analyst who's talked about, the Switch Pro for a while, but who isn't necessarily involved with Nintendo or anything like that, but has had their ear to the ground for a few things. So, I guess just be aware, it's possible Nintendo could drop news about this randomly, but I feel like if they're going to do it, it would be in the twilight of the Switch, that is next year, and might be at the Game Awards. Otherwise, we'll see if they want to announce it maybe in the direct kickoff 2024. Next up, let's talk about some more unfortunate news when it comes to the industry and layoffs. It feels like we've talked about layoffs like consistently over the last couple of months. It's like every other week, there's a big story about a bunch of people being let go at one of these large companies that, touts record profits every single year. But in this case, it seems to be Bungie and, technically then Sony, because Sony owns Bungie now. But this is an interesting situation. So it seemed that on Twitter, people started to pop up saying, hey, I've been let go from Bungie today. I noticed it was a lot of the social media team that was mentioning this, and then I saw different artists who had worked at Bungie. I believe the composer who worked there got let go, and then we saw Jason Schreier with the report. We can see this, where he says Bungie laid off an undisclosed number of staff today, part of ongoing job cuts across PlayStation. The company recently delayed the upcoming Destiny 2 expansion, The Final Shape, to June 2024, and the new game Marathon to 2025, sources tell Bloomberg. He goes on to say, well, to be clear, Bungie recently told staff that The Final Shape and Marathon are delayed. It was not made public until this story. So the thing with something like Marathon, we didn't get like a release date or anything that publicly, but I'm sure internally they had milestones and certain points they were trying to hit to get it out, I guess, by 2024. But that, of course, being pushed into 2025 once again brings up the question around Sony's 2024. However, in this case, it's mostly about obviously the layoffs that are happening right now. When you see a large number of people losing jobs at these companies that are doing quite well, it does make you scratch your head a bit. But we can also see Pete Parsons, the CEO at Bungie, release a statement saying, "Today is a sad day at Bungie as we say goodbye to colleagues who have all made a significant impact on our studio. What these exceptional individuals have contributed to our games and Bungie culture has been enormous and will continue to be a part of Bungie long into the future." And then he follows up saying, "These are truly talented people. If you have openings, I would highly recommend each and every one of them." And, it then got roasted all over Twitter. So it seems odd that the CEO would kind of discuss these layoffs in that capacity, because the people are saying, "Hey, you're the CEO. You would have made this decision." Well, again, technically, Bungie, while they are operating independently, I mean, it all comes back to the top, which is Sony. And we've seen Sony making like sweeping layoffs, as Jason Schreier has mentioned, with Media Molecule even coming up with layoffs and apparently then moving over to a new project outside of Dreams. We heard about a lot of the contractors at Naughty Dog being laid off, and that seemed to coincide with what was going on with Last of Us Factions multiplayer being put on ice. We heard recently Connie Booth was fired. So a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes at Sony, and it appears that is continuing to spill over into Bungie. But the thing that's strange about this whole situation with Bungie is when Sony purchased Bungie and acquired them, part of the amount that they paid, which is over $1 billion, was to retain talent there, because obviously Sony being very interested in a push in games as a service, I guess wanted to use Bungie as an entity that could evaluate a lot of the games they were working on, and we saw what happened with certain ones, whether it's Deviation Games, I guess missing out on that contract completely, having their funding cut as they laid off half of their studio, or what's happened with Naughty Dog, seemingly at the hands of Bungie, sending their game back and it being put on ice. And now I guess Bungie internally realized that Marathon has to be pushed to 2025. And we've discussed a lot about Sony and how it's just, the news hasn't been great for them recently, despite, I know, the console sales and everything on that side seemingly being good. Man, it just sounds like turmoil behind the scenes. And again, people are looking towards 2024. We hear about all these layoffs, and it's just not a lot of confidence right now. So the big thing Sony can do, of course, going into 2024 is to bare minimum set up the roadmap going forward. But yeah, hearing about so many people being laid off from Bungie, which they haven't released an exact count or anything there. It's just kind of going by the social media reaction and messages that are being put out there. It's not good. The gaming industry is doing really well this year. Record profits, awesome releases, but then you just hear about layoffs constantly. It's definitely a very odd look all the way around. Next up, let's talk about a new update that Microsoft appears to have made to their Xbox systems when it comes to the controllers that you can use. And this apparently is set up to block unauthorized setups, we can say. Like, for example, there are different things you can use that go between your controller and the console that will allow you to use keyboard and mouse to emulate a controller, or do things like auto aim, rapid fire, all the things that end up annoying you if you're playing fairly with just a stock controller. But in this case, it appears there are going to be some unfortunate ramifications from it, which we can see this image that's posted up. This is over on Windows Central, and you can see it says a connected accessory is not authorized, and it kicks up an error message 0x82D60002. It then goes on to say that you have a couple of months before your controller accessory just will not work anymore. Now, in order to avoid this, you want to look for this green circle on the packaging designed for Xbox. Now, that won't necessarily be an issue for most people who just go to, say, Target or Best Buy or GameStop or even Amazon for the most part and get your controllers there, because that's just kind of what they stock, right? Third parties that are known well enough to put on store shelves, and Microsoft's most likely authorized their use for the Xbox. Where that becomes a problem is with the fighting game community, who uses all kinds of different adapters for their custom fight sticks. Now, Windows Central did manage to get a response from a Microsoft spokesperson where they say Microsoft and other licensed Xbox hardware partners' accessories are designed and manufactured with quality standards for performance, security, and safety. Unauthorized accessories can compromise the gaming experience on Xbox consoles. Players may receive a pop-up warning that their accessory is unauthorized. Eventually, the unauthorized accessory will be blocked from use to preserve the console gaming experience. And then they have just like a list of accessories here that are supported that you can check out to make sure your controller or fight stick still works. And that's the biggest thing. I see two different viewpoints on this. One is, hey, that's good. I just use official controllers anyway. And whenever I go online, I do tend to run across someone who's using a controller that's obviously set up as a cheating device to give them an advantage, whether it's mouse and keyboard, auto aim, all these different things that you can do to a controller that isn't necessarily allowed online. But on the other side, people are looking at this saying, well, will my fight stick still work? Will that Brookstone adapter that I bought work? Will this controller that I have set up specifically for accessibility work? It's tough because Microsoft clearly is trying to walk this fine line to try to appease third parties who are officially supported, as well as try to make the online experience better, technically, but it also feels very overreaching with certain aspects. So it's something Microsoft's going to have to work through, and that's something that the fighting game community might kind of back away a bit. And when you see something like them pushing for Killer Instinct to get that update and maybe have a new Killer Instinct come out sometime in the future, not a great impression to make on the fighting game community that could be coming back for it. So they're going to have to figure that out with some of these different companies with the fight sticks and whatnot. So we'll see if Microsoft can continue to update this and make sure it's a bit better communicated, because this just kind of popped up and it was like pulling teeth getting a response from them. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that PlayStation Portal that is out here in a couple of weeks, as there have now been comparisons drawn to the Switch and the Steam Deck, which seems very strange to me, but let's hear what Sony's spokesperson had to say. And you can see this was posted up over on PlayStation Lifestyle with an interview with BBC. SIE executive Eric Lempel clarified that the PlayStation Portal was never meant to be a rival to Steam and Nintendo handhelds. The first time Sony has officially jumped into this discourse. It's a different proposition and really just something unique for the PlayStation audience. And this should be obvious to most people. I've tried to explain how really Sony is viewing the PlayStation Portal, which is, it's an accessory, it's a controller, really. Like, you still need a PS5 to use it, at least at this time. I feel like in the future, they can open it up to streaming, which their streaming has launched in the US for PlayStation Plus Premium. I used it very briefly an hour or so before recording, and it's much better than I was expecting. I will say that, and I've been checking out this streaming stuff since the early days of PlayStation Now. They've come a long way. I think that's an avenue the PlayStation Portal can go eventually, but right now, it's a controller with a screen. It's not a dedicated handheld like the Switch or the Steam Deck. You can compare it price-wise to the Switch Lite. They're both $200, but they're going to play the different games, of course, Sony with the PS5, their first-party exclusives, Nintendo with theirs, and it's more or less something you would just pair up with your already purchased PlayStation 5 console, and I don't really see it as something that would ever leave my house, let alone the same room with my PlayStation 5. I see it as something I would sit on the couch and play if somebody else is using the TV, or if there's a football game, a baseball game, something like that I want to watch while playing a game. It definitely is a good companion for that. And we probably won't even see sales figures, because I really think Sony's just going to sell this alongside of their DualSense Edge controller, their regular DualSense controller. It'll probably be in that aisle behind just like glass at a Walmart or something. It won't even be with the PS5 itself. So yeah, not a great comparison currently, but hey, who knows? Maybe someday all you need to do is buy the PlayStation Portal and a PlayStation Premium subscription, and you just stream everything to it. We'll see. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, what's next for the Zelda franchise? 54% say a remaster or a collection, 24% say a full remake of an older game, 16% say a brand new game in the series, and then 6% a spin-off title in the series. Always possible. I mean, we've seen some with the different warrior-style games from Koei Tecmo, and that could happen, right? I feel like a remaster or collection is most likely. Remember, Nintendo at one point said we want to have a Zelda game every single year if we can do it, and I still think a remaster or collection could be on the table for the first half of 2024. I think it would make sense, again, to kind of close out the Switch as the main focus device, since we assume second half of 2024, they're going to be talking all about this new system. But we still need Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I know we've had it basically every generation since the GameCube, but there are still many people who have not played Wind Waker, and they really should. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Log, who says, I would love for the next Nintendo system to be dual screen. So I feel like people still just like the concept that Nintendo had there with the dual screen setup, because it's interesting if all these developers really sat down and took advantage of it exclusively. I mean, having one screen in front of you and another one up on the TV like the Wii U, in theory, could lead to all kinds of really cool gameplay experiences. But even Nintendo kind of was like, well, we have these cool ideas with Breath of the Wild, but we're throwing those out now because it has to be on the Switch as well. And we hear about third parties who were in immediately and then like very quickly backed away from the Wii U, and that second screen functionality just kind of got tossed out the window for the most part. And that's the biggest thing. If the Switch 2 used dual screen in some way, you might have a lot of developers, third-party wise, who would like to utilize that stuff, but can't necessarily justify devoting all the resources to doing that, just kind of phone it in or not even really attempt it at all. So it's always fun to think about something like that leading up to its reveal and the development, but then you have to think about the more realistic scenario of some of these developers just want to create for something that is a more traditional system, in this case, just with one screen. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo, could they have one more surprise announcement, maybe at the Game Awards, for that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker combo, or maybe something else? And then also, what about the situation right now at Sony behind the scenes, Bungie announcing a bunch of layoffs and also delaying some of their expansions and games out into 2024 and 2025. And then how do you feel about Microsoft blocking certain unauthorized controllers? Are you on the side that this is good to try to mitigate cheaters online, or it's bad because it definitely limits the amount of controllers like fight sticks you can use? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.